Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stand. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United news. And I've got to say, although it's no surprise, I'm absolutely fuming. Literally, we've had to change the show this morning, as in the last few minutes it's dropped from Chris Wheeler that players are turning on Amorim again, that they are leaking against Amorim again, and that they are moaning about tactics again. Look, we actually predicted this yesterday. We said, how long will it be in the next 24 hours before there's a leak against Amorim from the dressing room? And lo and behold, it literally was 24 hours. The story is this, from Chris Wheeler, in the Daily Mail. Some players are beginning to lose faith in Amorim's system as results and performances continue to suffer. Amorim may still have their support, but confidence in his methods is inevitably starting to ebb. This is, you know who you can thank for all this? Gary Neville and his crew. This is exactly, a lot of footballers are thick. They're really thick, but they spend a lot of time on social media. So when they turn on Sky Sports and they see Gary Neville moaning about tactics, the light bulb pings in their hollow head and they go, ooh, let's get something out there because Gary's blaming Amorim. So if we can get out that we're blaming Amorim as well, that validates Gary and it validates us and Amorim takes the blame. The problem with it is Gary Neville did this to Mourinho. I say Gary Neville, I mean the collective media ex-player brigade. They did it to Ranić and they did it to Ten Hag. Look, it's like watching a crap film again and again and again. It's like Groundhog Day. Like, we cannot react to this as a fan base and give it any credibility or any validity. We cannot, because it was it not Ten Hag or Ranić where the leak came out about having to train in the dark? Was it not Mourinho where the leaks came out that they didn't have confidence in his methods and felt like he'd fell off? Was it not Ollie where they didn't have confidence in his training style? Was it not Ten Hag where we had exactly the same thing about style of play? And all of it coming from the dressing room, but all of it starting in a very uneducated media. I'm furious with this. I'm absolutely furious with this because these players sacked Ten Hag this season. You are not Amorim players. You have no right to pass judgment on a new manager with a new formation and new tactics that you're not good enough for. Amorim is not responsible for the fact that you can't finish chances. He is not responsible for the fact that you can't mark people from corners. He is not responsible for the fact that you can't string two passes together. And he's not responsible for the fact that you take about 10 seconds every time you get the ball to do something. These are bloody basics. Absolute basics. And I'm fuming. I'm absolutely fuming. I've absolutely had it with this fucking football club. It is an absolute shit show. And it goes back to the top again. You have got no control. You've got no control of that club. We are no different a year into INEOS than we were 10 into the Glazers. They've got no control of that football club at all. There's no consequence for poor performances. There's no consequence for paying big wages and doing fuck all. I'm absolutely devastated by the state of this football club and how people can sit here blaming another manager is just soul destroying. Absolutely soul destroying. I just cannot get my head around why this happens. And look, I understand why the journalists do it. They've got to pay the bills themselves. They're client journalists. They'll write any old shit. But it's every bloody time. And you know what? It gets less and less and less. It was season 3 when they got rid of Ten Hag. It's not even season 1 for Amorim, and it's already started. And I blame INEOS for this because they've brought him into a situation that was always going to be toxic, and all the goodwill is evaporating like a snowman on a hot sunny day. It is just gone. It is going, and patience does not exist in this fan base. And some of our fans just fall for the same tactics every time. What's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different outcome. And I see people saying tactics, style of play, manager, and I go, oh my God. You're actually going to sympathise with a bunch of players that are not his players, that sacked the previous manager because they couldn't play that style of play, and the previous manager because they couldn't play that style of play, and now they can't play this style of play. And at what point does the light bulb go off and go, maybe these players aren't good enough, and maybe they're distracting you by trying to blame everybody else. I mean, I've never heard... So it's okay for Sporting, and don't start... I mean, I saw Robbie, actually, yesterday. I saw a clip of Robbie listing off Portuguese clubs. That's all fine and well if he hadn't done it in the Champions League, Robbie, mate. And Arsenal haven't been in the Champions League that much in the last 10 years. So we can all list off shit clubs. But the bottom line is the system works with Sporting in the Champions League very, very well. So the Ajax system worked in the Champions League with Ten Hag very, very well. We can all take the piss out of the Portuguese League and the Eredivisie. But the point is it worked in the Champions League. These players haven't worked with any manager. I'm sorry, if I've got a manager that system has worked elsewhere but won't work here, but I've got players that won't work under any manager, it's a bloody obvious result, isn't it? So if I've got Man United players moaning again about the style of play, and I'm thinking about blaming the manager whose system worked in the Champions League with another club but won't work with these players, maybe I'd go, well, is it the manager? Is it the players? But if I've got players who failed under multiple manager styles, and every manager that comes here worked before but comes to Man United and it doesn't work, I'm sorry, I don't think it's the manager. I think it's the players. I think it's the club. I think it's the owners. I think it's the fitness department. I think it's recruitment. I think Manchester United is absolutely broken from top to bottom, and it's the impossible mission. It's the impossible mission for a new manager because these players are not good enough. Absolutely not good enough. I mean, it goes on to say, it is understood that the disaffected group believes that even when Man United win, it's largely down to individual moments of quality or good fortune rather than a tactical triumph. I mean, that's apparently coming from the dressing room. These people need finding and getting rid of. So, I mean, so basically they're now saying the tactics are so shit that when we do win, it's just down to luck. I mean, hold on a minute. I watched us play against Spurs in the second half and I thought we did well. And I thought we did well because we finally had a left back and we had balance. And that's a signing of, oh, wait a minute, Amorim. Amorim's one signing actually made us play better because we had a left-footed left back. And yet you've got people from the dressing room leaking about, wow, the tactics are shit. We only win because of luck. Oh, okay, so why didn't we beat Spurs? Oh, could it be because Xerxes and Garnacho missed 2 great chances and our defence is fucking shit and switched off on the back post and didn't close down, and Onana pushed it back into a tap-in for Maddison? We should have beat bloody Spurs. They're acting like we're a bunch of garden gnomes not doing anything. I'm tired of seeing fucking hipsters talking about why Amorim's system's not working. Like they've ever had a fucking job in football. Like they've ever coached a bloody team. The only bloody coaching they've done is bloody whacking the bloody floppy disk into their computer, which is, I know, is 30 years too late. But come on. We actually have got people making videos about where Amorim's going wrong. The guy's been coaching for the last 6 years at the heart, you know, in Europe. These guys are sat in their bloody pajamas writing out notes from Football Manager. Come on. I'm not interested in what your thoughts are on Amorim's tactics, because if you think you're a bloody tactico, go and get a fucking job. Go and get a job in the Champions League and then talk to me about where Amorim's going wrong. Because I don't see it. I really don't see it at all. I don't see a tactical deficiency with Manchester United. I think it's the most low IQ excuse I've ever heard. And I'm bored of it. I heard it with Rangnick. And Rangnick goes to Austria with, you know, one of the weaker European top teams and gets them playing good football against everybody every time I watch them. I saw Ten Hag with Ajax playing good football against good European teams. I've seen Amorim playing good football against good European teams. But they come to Man United and people can't write them off quick enough. Oh, who is this? Who is this Rangnick? Looks like he was a bloody professor. Looks like they've got him from a university in Germany. No, actually, he's one of the best builders of football clubs over the last decade and is attributed to one of the most impressive styles of football in the last decade. So, yeah, he's not some fucking German teacher that you've never bloody heard of. And that's how he was treated by our press and by our players. And here we are again with another manager with a proven track record being ridiculed by players who are shit. I mean, it needs to be called out. It needs to be called out. What Man United player, if this is true, would you trust? There is a better way of looking at it. So let's carry the story on. A dressing room source has said to Chris Wheeler, the feeling is we got away with one, but we might not be so lucky next time. So Who in the Man United dressing room would you say that you would listen to on tactical advice? Who in that Man United dressing room would you go, you know what, forget what Amorim's trying to do, forget what Ten Hag was trying to do, forget what Amorim was trying to do. I want to listen to this player. He's proven that he absolutely knows about top-level football in a tactical sense. The only one I'd listen to, potentially, is Bruno, and he runs around all over the place like he hasn't got a position. I wouldn't listen to one of those players about tactical advice. And this is what I mean about evidence. I want to talk about what Romano said in a few minutes about Man United's plans in the summer. And yet, 3 days ago, Amorim said we've got to sell to buy. So you've got Romano saying Man United definitely plan to do a lot of things in the summer in numerous positions. But I've got the manager of Man United going 3 days ago, we've got to sell to buy. And you see what I mean? Sometimes the evidence is out there. It's staring you in the face. Sometimes you've just got to have a look. And it's all right constantly getting dressing room leaks about players saying, we're not happy with this, we're not happy with that. But you know what? Let's take what Chris Wheeler's said. Let's say it's true. Let's say there are a number of players that don't like the tactics and don't like what's going on. Have you ever thought why they might be saying it and who is saying it? Maybe they're players who are on the bench. Maybe it's Casemiro. Maybe it's Lindelof. Maybe it's first team players that know they can't play the system and they're looking shit in it and they want to look better in a 4-3-3. Maybe it's people who want to move. Or ultimately, maybe it's players you wouldn't trust to coach a cat. There's nobody in that dressing room I would listen to on tactics of Man United over Ruben Amorim. Not one of them. Even if they gang up as a 5, I wouldn't listen to them. Absolutely not. Most of them are in their 20s and are nowhere near being a football coach. And most of them are not performing to an average level when it comes to the absolute basics. So why would I listen to any Man United player about, tactically we don't feel we're doing it right? I mean, you've got to earn respect, lads. You've got to earn respect. I mean, look, if it was prime Barcelona and a few of those players like Xavi and Iniesta are questioning the new manager, you might want to listen. But they wouldn't do it because they've got the best interest of Barcelona at heart and they know that you keep stuff in the dressing room. They're not shithouses, basically. You wouldn't get a top player doing this because they respect the badge and they respect the club and they respect the fans. But time and time again at our club, shithouses leaking against managers, derailing an already sinking ship. I mean, if Man United is the Titanic and it's sinking, these players are basically getting on the speedboat, full pelt away. Nothing to do with me. I think it's a bloody disgrace. I think it's an absolute disgrace. And it's every bloody week now. It's every week now. And all it is, look, I cannot acknowledge in any way, shape or form this basic low IQ conversation that we need to change our tactics. I saw somebody yesterday. It was Robbie again on his video, and he was going, Man United need to change their tactics. And I'm screaming at the TV because I'd just done a video with Robbie, and I'm going, to what? What are we changing our tactics to? Please tell us, because everybody is saying this. What are we changing it to? Are we going back to a 4-3-3, or are we going to try something brand new we've never played before, that Amorim's never played before? So I presume we're going back to the 4-3-3. The same 4-3-3 that got Ten Hag relegated. So we need to change our This is what I mean. People just spout nonsense. Let's go back to we need to change our tactics. What to? I don't actually know. I just heard somebody say it on telly, and I'm not happy. And I heard that. I need something to cling on to. So I'm just going to shout, we need to change the tactics. What to? I don't actually know. What are we changing the tactics to? Why do you keep saying it? I don't really know. Right, you've got to say so. 4-3-3. I think the players look good in a 4-3-3. What, the 4-3-3 that sacked Ten Hag? Yeah, but they might do it better under Amorim. Oh, so we'll go back to a system that Ten Hag wanted to play that didn't work, and we'll make Amorim play a system he doesn't want to play, and everything will be fine. And you break down this low IQ nonsense in seconds. We need to change the tactics. We need to change the formation. To what? What are you talking about? If you're angry and pissed off, maybe look at the way the club's being run. Maybe look at the fact that we are going to burn another manager because our stupid owners threw him into a situation where by the time he actually starts his build, he'll have lost a percentage of the fan base. And that's the bottom line, isn't it? Because Stone Cold said so. That is the bottom line. This manager should have been coming in for 2 or 3 years to build something. He's not even been here 2 or 3 months, and he's lost a load of support because they've thrown him into an impossible situation working with a bunch of prats who don't know what they're bloody doing. And that's the bottom line. And I blame INEOS for that because they should have seen that bringing Amorim in November without the players and support and no pre-season was always going to go absolutely tits up. And I read a really intelligent article, actually. A big shout out to James. He sent it to me the other day. Actually, yesterday. I think it was on Yahoo. I didn't even know they still exist. And there was this article about Man United are shit, but there's actually a reason why they're even shitter than they should be. And what it basically was saying is that 10 years ago, Man United might be the 10th best team in the world, but they'd still, in this form, finish in the top 10 of the Premier League quite comfortably. What's happened is Man United aren't the 10th best team in the world now. They're probably down to like 40 or something like that. But the problem is, over the last 10 years, you've got teams like Wolves, Aston Villa, etc. in the Premier League who've got loads of internationals in their team because the Premier League's got richer, and now Wolves and Villa can buy players that maybe would be playing for AC Milan or Atletico Madrid. So the Premier League has got stronger. So maybe 10 years ago, in the top 30 teams in the world, you'd have 5 Premier League clubs, whereas now you've probably arguably got 10. So the strength of teams in the Premier League means that if you are Man United and you drop off a bit, you don't drop from 4th to 7th, you drop from 4th to fucking 17th. And it's true, the Premier League is getting stronger. And I still think INEOS and bloody the Glazers think we're Man United from 10 years ago and, you know, a couple of tweaks and we'll get it back in the top 4. Forget about it. The Premier League's too strong now. The Premier League is way too strong and we're bloody miles off. And they've thrown him into that situation. If Amorim does get sacked down the line, does that highlight the incompetence of INEOS, who didn't allow the guy come in this summer when he wanted to? Absolutely, Kay. Absolutely, Kay Ray. Neville is the definition of arrogance, ignorance, and selling your soul to INEOS, says Joseph. Look, he represents on national TV this talk of tweaking the system. But to what? I can't deal with people who moan about changing something, but then you ask them to what, and they don't have a solution. We're Leeds in the making, says Cruel. Can you imagine how bad we'd be reverting back to 4 at the back? We can't keep a clean sheet with a 5, says United 85. You'd still have Delo tucking in, leaving the back post unmarked. You'd still have Maguire slow and a high line, not able to... I mean, if we played a back 4 with Maguire, we'd have to play on the edge of our box, which means we'd be fucking even further away from our goal. It wouldn't work. Amorim should walk away for his own sanity. Club is cursed from years of overpaying and coddling spoiled egomaniac players. Even Jamie Redknapp, it's the players that are crap, says Anthony. None of our players, bar maybe 2 or 3, would start for any of the top 12 teams, says Josh Burke. I've had it with them and INEOS. J.E. says the issue is cultural from the owners. They do not have the financial ability to get rid of dissenting players and player power, says J.E. Well, player power still exists, doesn't it? Clearly. Ashley, I'm actually glad the Amorim agenda has started so early on. The Ten Hag reign is so recent in our memories that although not everyone, a lot more people are waking up and seeing the real issues at the club, says Ashley. Andres says we did play other... you know what? There's so much I need to go through this morning, but I have said to you for weeks, and many of you have agreed, to be fair, you know, we are on a cycle. Everything is repetitive. And we've been saying it for weeks on here. The parallels between Amorim and Rangnick are astounding. Absolutely astounding. You've got a guy who comes in, talks total sense, and guess what? It exposes the problems at the club. So the problems at the club start leaking against the manager. And the media love it. And then you end up with fans being gullible enough to swallow it. And then actually the hero ends up being the villain. And that's, it's a bit like that line out of bloody Batman, isn't it? You know, sometimes the hero ends up the villain. And I think that's what's happened here. That Amorim's come in and said, Rashford's not good enough. Casemiro's not good enough. Anthony's not good enough. Some of these players aren't good enough. We basically need open heart surgery. But he can't get open heart surgery. And actually the results keep getting bad. and then people turn on the manager, and you end up losing the guy that's actually the guy we need. And this happened with Rangnick. I mean, 3 years ago, we lost Rangnick because the media just turned on him and ridiculed him. And you know what always pissed me off as well is there was an article last summer, and I can't remember who the journalist was. It might have been Sky or something like that. And they basically wrote in their article that fans soon grew weary of Ralph Rangnick and his fake promises. And I was like, no, fans never turned on Rangnick. It was you, knobheads. We did play other system with previous coaches, not the style of play. Bruno is not a captain. He should help. They can't pass a 5-yard pass, says Andres. Literally any manager in the world football would need time and backing to fix the issues we have, says Leo. So Jim Radcliffe has ran this so terribly, I'm starting to believe it's a tactic to remove the Glazers. It's dumb. No, I don't even know how that would remove them, Elliot. Conte won a Premier League with 3 at the back. Atalanta Leverkusen went invincible into dominating Serie A, says Tony. It's a serious cultural issue at the club. How many well-regarded managers are we going to burn? Blame shifting propped up by the media. It's not the impossible dream anymore. It's the impossible job. The media fucking haters. I don't know, look, we have to talk about it in the news, but when we're talking about it, we're responding and fighting against it. Some people swallow it as the truth. And I can't believe we've got such low IQ fans in our fan base that they can't see that this is rinse and repeat. We've literally had that story last week, last year, the year before that, the year before that, and the year before that. Always the same, different manager. We don't like the tactics. And who survives? The players. You know what? Andy Hart says, do we get rid of complete team to suit a system they can't play? 100%. 100%. That's exactly what needs to happen. I hope you're not saying it like it's a bad thing. Of course we need to get rid of the fucking players. They're shit. Most of them are absolutely shit. And when I say the players, I'm talking about the general squad. Not all of them are shite, but, you know, we need a massive... Ralph Rangnick said it 3 years ago. We need open heart surgery. And we still do need open heart surgery because although Ten Hag did spend money, was he ever allowed to get rid of Lindelof? Was he ever allowed to get rid of Dalot? Was he ever allowed to get rid of Bruno or Rashford or Maguire? I'm not saying he should have got rid of those players, but he wasn't allowed to get rid of them. And that's not open heart surgery. We should never have sacked Ten Hag when we did, says Alex. Warren, welcome to the members club. I fear if INEOS don't go, Mark will, says Josh. The circle of United life, utterly pathetic, says Nate. Rasmus, welcome to the members club. How many more times do we have to endure the miserable merry-go-round? I'm totally demoralised, says McAlvis. And Chris Davies, welcome to the members club. Look, we predicted this yesterday morning. We predicted this yesterday morning that Manchester United at some point was going to leak out about the manager's tactics. And yet nobody can tell us what tactics we should be changing to. There is nobody actually doing it. Not at all. I see people talking about the press. I see people talking about playing out from the back. I see people talking about, you know, these 2 players need to sit. But I couldn't give a toss about how many hours you've spent knocking one out to your tactical acumen. But I've watched Man United play every game under Ruben Amorim. And I've watched Man United play every game under Ten Hag. And what you seem to forget is you're talking about like tactical genius that apparently you all have, but we can all play that game. I can get the old tactics board out and start moving them all around like this, that, and the other. But I watch every game, and I watch every game with you. And how many games are we going, what the fuck was that pass? Why couldn't you play that pass? Why aren't you marking him? Why couldn't you finish that? Why are you shooting from there? Why are you hitting that pass? You know, every bloody game. And then people want to talk about, well, we need the shape to be like this. We need to press collectively like that. These 2 players need to do this. In this situation, we should be doing that. And I'm like, hold on a minute. They don't do simple things. And you're asking them to do complex things. You want Ruben Amorim to teach them French. They can't even speak a sentence in English. You know, but people want to go that level. We're down here, lads and ladies. You know, all this tactical bullshit. Maybe they need to learn to pass the ball. Maybe they need to learn to mark players. We can't score goals from set pieces. How many free kicks have we scored in the last 5 years? I'd be surprised if it's over one hand. How many times have we scored from corners? How many times have we conceded from corners? We're an absolute shambles. You've got to teach them the basics before you can start talking about your Gegenpress and, you know, everything else that you've got up your arse. We've got to start doing the basics. And also, you know what? The show today was actually going to be about what Romano said yesterday about Man United are going to sign players in the summer, and that's the plan. I was going to talk about that. And then I saw something else. And then I've seen this. And I've gone, you know what? Sometimes, because of how Man United have been run over the last 10 years, sometimes the cynic in me just doesn't see it, just comes right to the top. So today, it was in the Manchester Evening News, today marks 1 year since Luke Shaw last started a game for Manchester United. So that would be quite a big news story, and it's quite a big negative story, isn't it? Luke Shaw earns about £8 million a year, and we've paid him £8 million a year to not do his job. And in that time, we've sacked 250 people. And in that time, we haven't had a left back. Last game out, we had a left back, and we look better than we have done in a year. So there's a story there, isn't there, about the embarrassment that Man United have currently with a player that hasn't played a match, started a match in a year, who is earning ridiculous amounts of money whilst we're sacking people and we're not playing without a left back. And then you think, oh, that's a really interesting story. You're just about to go live and you get another story about people in the dressing room not happy with the style of play. And you think, oh, I wonder why that smoke screen's come out again. I wonder why they've pulled this out now. And I do sometimes think, well, maybe they're fully aware that Luke Shaw story is going to come out, and maybe it's distraction tactics again. And look, there are people in that dressing room who aren't playing. There are people in that dressing room who are injured. There are people in that dressing room who the club want to get rid of as well. So who's to say that people in that dressing room leaking this aren't people who you wouldn't be surprised are leaking it? And my point about that is that the sad thing is, if I was a Man United player leaking about the way we're playing, I'd be absolutely distraught if I was Ruben Amorim, if it was any player that played on Sunday. Because with their backs up against the wall, I actually think we did okay. I think we did okay. I think there's something to build on there. I think tactically it looked good. And I think look, if we didn't have all this negativity and leaks all the time, I actually think we've got something to build on. Like I said last night, our backs are up against the wall. It's a shit situation, but I did see things. And why if you were Joshua Zirkzee or Dorgu or Maguire or De Ligt or Mazraoui or Dalot or Bruno or Rasmus or Garnacho, would you be leaking against a manager when you know you're going to be playing every week between now and the end of the season? The squad is threadbare. You are going to play every bloody week. Why would you moan? Why would you leak that out? So, you know what? By deduction, I think the same problem comes out, that if there is a leak, if there are leaks from the dressing room, it's very unlikely to be people that played on Sunday. And if I was one of those people who played on Sunday, then I would be ignoring that shit and focusing on fans that have your back and want you to perform for Manchester United and prove these knobheads wrong in a siege mentality. We know the club's being run into the ground, but fans are suffering more than you're suffering. You're getting bloody paid for this. So, look, I detest all this, but if we want to have real headlines this morning, can we stop repeating and calling it out, repetition? You cannot give any credibility to whoever these people are leaking out against the manager when we've had exactly the same story against Ten Hag, against Ralf Rangnick, against Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and against Jose Mourinho, and against Van Gaal. Every single manager has faced this. It's distraction. And the bottom line is, every one of those managers, bar Ole, have achieved things in football elsewhere. What do they have in common? They came to Manchester United and apparently they were suddenly shit. Apparently all these coaches that have achieved things all around Europe are shit when they come to Man United. Could it be the club is shit? Could it be the players are shit? Could it be the way the club is run is shit? Of course it is. We all know that. It's interesting though. I wanted to talk about, look, we can double in, we can go back to that, of course we can, but there are other things to talk about this morning. It's interesting, actually. I wanted to we sort of caught this at the end of the show last night. What's this? Okay. How does that get 1.1 million views? Madness, absolute madness. It's just talking about distraction. So somebody's taken, I didn't even know you can do this. Well, you can do it. So they've basically photoshopped a headline of a United stand show with my face on it, and it's calling Xerxes the N-word as the title. And it's had 1.1 million views on Twitter. I mean, that's what you're up against, people. That's what the world is now. This is why, on a very basic level, there are morons in our fan base who will believe the players over the manager, because there are morons. Oh, don't worry, they'll be getting done for that. But there'll be some faceless idiot. But I mean, how thick do you have to be to think that there was a video title like that on YouTube? I mean, how thick do you have to be? I just cannot get my head around how thick some people are sometimes. Yeah, back on track. But look, this is what I mean. Like, we're that. For all I know, who the people behind that account could be the Glazers. You know, we say sue him because it's some idiot 15-year-old Arsenal fan. It's a faceless Twitter account. For all you know, it could be a Glazer bot. This is what I mean. Don't get distracted. The minute you start talking about land that nobody knew that was owned, and the minute you start putting the pressure on the club, you become a target. If anything ever happens to me, I know where I'd be looking at. But the point is, it's all distraction. The minute you start, what was the one thing that terrified the Glazers? You know, people talk about protests and people talk about not buying the shirts and emptying the stadium. What was the one thing that made Joel Glazer meet with fans for the first time in a decade? Liverpool game getting called off. That is the hint. Every United fan who's involved in protests knows it. The only thing that made the Glazers shit themselves was when that game got called off. Because suddenly the Premier League are going, what the fuck are you doing at this football club? And it costs them a lot of money. But this is what happens in this fan base. There is a clear and definable issue at the football club, and people allow themselves to get distracted. And this is why we'll always fail. And this is why, when the new kit comes out in the summer and we sign a player like Quenda, everyone will be buying the kit going, we're going to cook next season. And then by Christmas, we'll be mid-table again, and people will be going, I wish I hadn't bought the kit. But everybody will go out and buy the kit. Everybody will do it. And this is why they always win, because we can't do anything collectively to actually make a change at this football club. And the stupid thing is, there are other fan bases that would get it done, because you could get it done. You could make change at this football club. They're not as powerful as you think. They are vulnerable. They just get away with it because none of us can come together and do what needs to be done. Hi, Mark. I remember you knew who the leak was at the end of Eric Ten Hag. Is that the player still in the team? Says Impulse United. Mate, I'm not going to start talking about leaks from Ten Hag's time under Amorim. I haven't got a fucking clue who this is, so it would be unfair to throw stuff like that out. This will end up with Southgate taking charge, says Armchair Sportsman. And if we lose to Everton and Ipswich, time to start worrying, says C.W. Evans. But what does that even mean? So if we lose to Ipswich and Everton, the only person that should be worried is Amorim. You're not going to sack any players. You're not going to get rid of INEOS. So it would be Amorim, wouldn't it? Which again, for me, is the wrong thing. Can Amorim's system work with 3-5-2? Wing-backs pressing up to joining the attack, crossing in. Keep in mind, most of these players will leave soon, says Keel. It's my birthday. I mean, I don't know what you're talking about, Keel, really. This is the guy that INEOS gave us. So if it doesn't work, it's on them. It's my birthday today, and I'm up the United, says Warren. Happy birthday, mate. Ashworth disagreed with the signing of Ten Hag because it might destabilise our season. He got sacked because of it. He didn't want Amorim either. That was, I don't know the validity of that story, by the way. I'm just reading a super chat there. Just trying to catch up, but my live chat has just frozen again, like it seems to do every show. That was from Jens Silverstone. And the player situation is similar to a man who keeps breaking up with his exes for the same reason. Therefore, does that not mean he is the problem, says C. And win Europa, invest 300 million, win the treble next season, says Sean Wayne. And if Amorim does get sacked down the line, does that highlight the incompetence of INEOS, who didn't allow the guy to come in the summer? 100%. That was from K. Ray, and I think that's a great point. Yeah, look, what I wanted to talk about was this this that came out yesterday evening from Fabrizio Romano. I can guarantee that in the summer, the idea is still to do many things to cover several positions. Look, Fabrizio Romano and David Ornstein, for me, are the two best transfer journalists in the world. They're also, coincidentally, the only two people who get any news from Man United. So the relationship is there between Man United and Fabrizio. And when Fabrizio is putting out in the middle of February that I can guarantee that United are going to do many things in the summer, or their intention is to do many things in the summer, I would question how and why that is coming out in the middle of February after another bad result. Because Ruben Amorim on Friday, in a very depressed state, said, I've got to sell to buy. But then you've got the number one transfer journalist in the world saying completely different, that Man United will do many things in the summer and in many positions, which makes you think we're going to spend a lot of money. But then Amorim, our manager, said we need to sell to buy. So you sort of can't help yourself from falling into the, why is this bullshit coming out? Are we being spun again? We know Fabrizio's got good connections at the club. Are they passing it out to Fabrizio? Our intention this summer is to do many things for this manager. But the big word is intention. Our intention is to win the Europa League and get lots of money for being in the Champions League, which will allow us to buy players. Always look below the headline. Our intention is to do many things in the summer. But are we likely to qualify for Europe at all? Some would say no. If we don't, are we going to do many things in the window? We still owe loads of money, hundreds of millions of pounds on transfers we've already done. How are we paying for that? More importantly, Casemiro yesterday said he wants to stay for 18 months. He's on 18 million a year. Marcus Rashford is another one on 18 million a year who may or may not go in the summer. That's over 30 million if he doesn't. Mason Mount is on 250 grand a week and he is never fit. That's 12 million a year. Luke Shaw, we've just mentioned, hasn't played in a year. He's on 8 million a year. Suddenly, on those four players, is 50 million pounds. Anthony, will we get anything for him? He's on 200 grand a week. So, yeah, okay, you're going to make 6 million from Lindelof's wages when he goes, and you're going to make another 6 million from Eriksen's wages when he goes. But you can see what Amorim is saying. I'm going to make a little bit on Lindelof and Eriksen's wages, but I'm still going to have to be paying wages to Mason Mount, Luke Shaw, Casemiro. All these players are still going to be earning tens of millions of pounds and offering next to nothing because they're injured or no good anymore. And people are talking like we're going to go and spend another 200 million on players. We need to sell to buy. You're not going to sell Casemiro. You're not going to sell Mount. You're not going to sell Shaw. You're going to end up selling Garnacho or Meno, aren't you? And therefore, you're selling a player that Amorim clearly likes so he can bring other players in. How does that improve things if you retain the players that he doesn't want, sell a player he does want so he can bring players in he does want? At best, you're going to take a small step forward. You might take a step back. I mean, I was thinking about this yesterday about Garnacho. I'll bring it into the show because I was just thinking about it. The one thing about Garnacho is, obviously, he's still very raw. Some people don't rate him. Some people do. That's not my point. My point is he's never injured. Ahmad is another player that a lot of us like, very, very talented. In the last 2 seasons, he's missed half a season. Last season, he missed half a season through injury. This season, he's going to miss half a season through injury. You can talk about value and you can talk about who you prefer, but I prefer players that are fit. Bruno Fernandes, knock him or dislike him, he's never injured. Mason Mount, some of you probably think Mount's better than Bruno. Well, Mount's not played for 2 years. Bruno's basically played for 2 years. I know who I'd prefer in my team, and it's not about ability, it's about availability, because the best ability is availability. Look at Ahmad. Missed half a season for the last 2 years. I think he was injured before that as well. Garnacho basically played for 2 years. So we're going to sell a player that's always available. and keep players that potentially aren't. And this is the plan. This is the plan, isn't it? We need money. Let's sell a good player and keep the shit we can't get rid of. This is not an appetite for... This is not a recipe for success. It's an appetite for destruction, which is a very good album. But I don't see how we're going to have this many things summer transfer window when I can already look at the facts, and the facts are we're going to be spending 40, 50 million pounds a year on wages next season for players we don't want, that we can't get rid of. We've got hundreds of millions of pounds to pay again on transfers that we've already done. Second payment on Euro, second payment on Xerxes, second payment on De Ligt, third payment on Rasmus. I don't know whether we paid up front for Mount. So we've still got loads and loads of money guaranteed to go out of the club next year. I mean, let's say if we owe 300 million pounds on transfers, maybe another 50 this summer is going to go out on transfers we've already done. You've got all those wages I've said, 30 to 40 million on players that we don't even want. You've got your debt interest, which is probably another 30 to 40 million. It's 100 million going straight away on all of that. And yet, yeah, we're going to spend loads of money. I just think people need to wake up and start realising that the situation is bleak. Why are the English fans so brave? In Italy, the Netherlands, France, the owner and the players would face hell if the club is running in this way, says Dejan. Thoughts on Anthony killing it in La Liga, Mark, says Joseph. I spoke about it yesterday. I mean, I couldn't give a shit. It's he scored in his first 3 games for Man United, didn't he? The question has to be, why is he killing it there and he couldn't do it here? Why was he so shit in the Premier League, but he can do it in the Eredivisie in La Liga? That's on him. It's not on us. He's played under 2 different managers. He's had loads of chances. It's not Amorim's problem, is it? It's not Ten Hag's problem. It's not your problem. It's not my problem. It's his problem. I don't know. I remember you knew who the... I've done that one. Thank you very much. Still bits to get through here, and I've completely lost where I was. Okay, here we go. Yeah, I mean, just a couple of bits. Apparently this Bournemouth centre-back who's 19, Hisson, has got a £50 million release clause. Where are we going to get that from? I don't know. And did you see this story last night as well? I mean, this is the sort of nonsense that is out there in 4K, really. So this comes in from... I don't even know where it comes in from. It was on MUFC MPB. Man United reached an agreement with Napoli in January to sign Osimhen, but the player said, "I promised to stay at Galatasaray until after I finish the season." What a load of shit. Where was that money coming from then? Because we didn't even have 8 million for Tell. So where was this agreement with Napoli? You see what I mean? Just total nonsense. Total nonsense. Distraction. Loving the content lately. Keep up the good work, says Jens. Got a good video tonight. Got a guest coming on. I've not done one of these for quite a while. Want to talk about, the situation with Man United, the protests, INEOS, etc. So we're going to do that at 8 o'clock. So I'm looking for that. I like the German ownership model, says Rob, always United. Is Mason Mount going to be back soon? Is Luke Shaw going to be back soon? I mean, is Johnny Evans going to be back soon? I mean, these are 3 players that just seem to have disappeared. I mean, Luke Shaw longer than everybody, but yeah, it's... I mean, I don't know what happened to Johnny Evans. I mean, he was always a player that was about. He hasn't seemed to have been about for a couple of months either. Graham says, if United sack Amorim, I can't see a top manager wanting to come as he'd be too scared of getting the sack. I think they'll always come, mate. I think, like footballers, managers are egotistical and they always want to be the guy who can be the guy. Everybody comes in with lots of big ideas, almost disrespectful of the previous manager. I'm my own man, I can do this. Mourinho did it to Van Gaal. Ollie did it to Mourinho. Ten Hag did it to Rangnick. And, this is what happens all the time. But we'll always get managers. There'll always be a manager that wants to take the job. But I think it's the impossible job. I really, really do. But... as I say, it's disgusting this morning to be seeing these sorts of stories again. But it's not surprising. We predicted it yesterday. And, you know, just reading that headline from the Daily Mail again, what Man United players really think of Amorim's tactics. I really think there is here and here. And we know the media are down here. But I expect United fans to be up here. And it's like Mrs. Brown's Boys. I just think it's totally shit. But some of my mates quite like it. And they try and explain it to me. And I'm like, it's shit. I can't. It comes on at Christmas. I can't watch it. But somebody's got to watch it and enjoy it. And I think all I can do is keep saying, what are you talking about, tactics? Like, what is it you're actually saying you want us to do? Because everybody who's on about tactics keeps saying he needs to change the tactics. He needs to change the tactics. And most of us are going, to what? Why? Why would a painter and decorator have to become a plumber? You know, this is what he is. This is what we brought him here for. He's only been here 2 months. He has to obviously get worse to get better. And he hasn't got the ingredients, as I said yesterday. Why would you abandon what you believe in? Why should he abandon what he believes in? And if he does abandon what he's believed in, why did we bring him in the first place? Why bring a manager in who plays that tactic and that formation, then tell him to change it? Never should have brought him in the first place. If you want Amorim to play Moyes ball, you should have brought Moyes here. If you want Amorim to play Ten Hag ball, you shouldn't have sacked Ten Hag. I don't get why people keep saying, let's change the formation. Auto says, let's play a 4-2-3-1. Mate, who's going to play in that system? They failed under Ten Hag. Ten Hag's system, they failed in. Amorim doesn't play a 4-2-3-1, and you think we should play a 4-2-3-1 under Amorim, who doesn't play it, when these players couldn't play Ten Hag's system. And I'll go back to what I said before. They're not doing the basics, mate. You want to tactically change them, they can't do the basics. They don't mark people, they don't run enough, they don't pass the ball properly, they can't finish simple chances, they shoot from stupid places, they can't take corners, they can't score free kicks, they can't defend set pieces. This is not tactical, this is basics. That's what they need to do. But it's just another excuse. It's an excuse for certain players to protect themselves and blame shift. And it's an excuse for people out there who don't have the capacity to moan at what the real issue is. So they start talking about tactics and pin it on the manager. It's not been the manager's fault at Man United for 10 years when we look back at it. I always say I regret the day I said Jose out. I did say it and I have to own it, but I regret the day I said Jose out. That was the beginning of the end. It was harsh on Van Gaal. He won the FA Cup, but I think Mourinho was a better bet. And I still think we made the right choice. But every manager since Mourinho, I've regretted it. That's why I didn't do it with Ten Hag, and I'm not going to do it now. That was where it started. Player power and shit ownership really came to the fore with the sacking of Jose. And the same people were doing the same thing. It's the manager. It's the tactics. He's losing the players. It's not the manager's fault. And I think that here we are again, blaming managers again. And as I said, I'll read the comments later, and I'm sure there'll be people saying we just need to go back to a really simple formation of a 4-2-3-1. It didn't work under Ten Hag, and that was his system. They were still doing the basics wrong. We'll still get beat. We played a 4-2-3-1 last season, and our midfield was wide open. We were conceding more chances last season than we are this season. So why would we go back to a system where we were getting absolutely slaughtered? Absolutely slaughtered. But you've got geniuses telling us a 5 at the back doesn't work. And yet, we knocked Arsenal out the FA Cup. We didn't get beat by Liverpool. We beat Man City. The problem is not the system. It's the players who decide to be inconsistent each game they play. If they played like they did against Man City and like they did against Liverpool, we'd win a lot more games. But they don't. They're blame shifters. Everybody at the club is blame shifters, which is why people like Ralph Rangnick and Ruben Amorim don't last long, because they come in with accountability, a vision, and desire. And the great thing about Amorim is, in every interview, he actually takes the blame. He took the blame for people being sacked a few days ago. He takes the blame, and Rangnick took the blame, but also talks about solutions. And I'm sorry, if you're somebody that works at Man United who is honest, reflects, and wants to improve, you're a dead man walking, or woman, because that club is full of rats and backstabbers and snakes, and we've seen it for 10 years. I've just seen on a real Instagram showing the system works, some of the players don't. Where should I send it to you? Says Ryan Lord. Mate, I know the system works. I know the system works because I know that every attack we have that breaks down because of a simple mistake. I know the system works because every goal we concede because somebody's made a stupid mistake. If you look at the goal against Spurs, that goal happens not because of the system. That goal happens because Onana boots it aimlessly to a Spurs player. It ends up on the right wing. A cross that comes in that should be dealt with doesn't get dealt with because Delo is marking Mazraoui instead of actually marking the back post. Son puts it into Bergvall, and Bruno, because he's not a midfielder, doesn't close down quick enough. In fact, that's not an excuse. Bruno just doesn't close down quick enough. And then the shot goes in, and Onana, who wasn't bought by Amorim, has a terrible tendency of making good saves but palming it back into danger, and we lose 1-0. Every goal we concede has got nothing to do with the system. There's always a basic error. And every attack we have that we don't score from, 99% of the time, there's a basic error. There's a wrong pass. I mean, look, what I find hilarious is that yesterday people were talking about Garnacho, Bruno, and everybody else ignoring Dorgu. Well, the system works then. Because if Dorgu's making the overlap into space and you're frustrated by them ignoring him, well, hello, the system works then, doesn't it? It's just individuals not following the pattern of play. You can't have your cake and eat it. You can't say one thing and then the other. I don't think the system's the problem. I don't think the system with Ten Hag was the problem. I've always felt the players. It's the players. They're not good enough to do it. Anyway, thank you very much for everybody. Sebastian says you should watch GCN on YouTube talking about how the cycling team got worse after INEOS and Brailsford. Sky was the best, most dominant cycling team. I got sent something today that INEOS were trying to get out of the Mercedes deal as well. I don't know. Do you see Garnacho and Mainu here next season, says Chikorito? Honestly, might be controversial, but I think they'll get rid of Garnacho because there's more interest. But the scary thing is, Mainu is more injury prone than Garnacho. I don't want either of them to go, but if we sell Garnacho and we keep Mainu and we keep Ahmad, I'm worried about them because they seem to pick up quite a lot of injuries, whereas Garnacho doesn't. So I wouldn't sell any of them. They're not the player. Casemiro, Luke Shaw, Mount. They should be going. Not Garnacho or Mainu. But I think we all know what's inevitable. You sell what you want. Robert McCormack says, I'm not sure if these Slot comments on Rashi are digs. Slot's a weirdo when it comes to Man United. Look, I've given him a lot of praise, Robert. He's done a very good job at Liverpool, but I don't get the digs at Man United. Like, we are big rivals, but we're not your concern at the moment. Score prediction at Everton. I'm inclined to say United win, but at this point I have no idea. Brandon, I just want to play that Everton game. I want to play that Everton game so these players can prove that these leaks are bullshit and get behind this manager. I saw signs of life against Spurs. We were a lot better with Dorgu in the team. Let's get Agate back. Get Casemiro out of the team. We'll be better. I just want to play the game. I want to play the game. Thanks everyone for watching. Speak to you all in a bit. Back at 2.